frame, perfect. Mario Party is a game that I've played ever since I was a kid. It all started way back on the block. There was one kid on the block who had all the video games, and I went over to his house to play most of the video games. My parents weren't super keen on us having tons of video games at our disposal, so most of the stuff I played was on the PC, like Roller Coaster Tycoon. But that's okay, because I got to go over to his house, and over at his house, I would play video games for less time than I probably would have spent at my house playing video games, which is fine, because if I just sat there playing video games my entire childhood, I wouldn't have all the awesome memories I had riding bikes, playing in the snow, shooting fireworks into the neighbor's window right across the street, and then running inside the house because we're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe his dad's gonna come out and kill us. But all that to say, I think I turned out alright. I got a full-time job and I'm doing the video as a hobby, so thanks, Mom and Dad. Mario Party was an awesome game that we used to just go over to his house and we do 50 round turns on Peach's birthday cake, and the 10th time you go past Bowser's just the worst. Those were some of the best times of my life. So when I saw that Mario Party 2 was a thing, I was interested in the prospect of playing more Mario Party games. And then I never did. I didn't actually get to play any of the other Mario Party games until I figured out how emulators worked on our Windows XP computer, and Project 64, let me tell you, that was a solid part of my childhood, and I know the ROM and emulation market is really intense right now, and it's really sad, and there's all sorts of litigation going on, but to the developers of Project 64, I salute you. You made my childhood a little bit better than it probably would have been if you guys hadn't been doing your thing. It's also pretty clear that Mario Party is definitely not as beloved now as it was back then. Is it because we all grew up? I don't really think so, because Mario Kart continually draws in people who played it as kids. Super Smash Brothers. That's gotten out of control with actual professional fighting and stuff like that. It's insane. It's crazy and people love it. About 2 to 3 million copies per Mario Party game have been sold, so perhaps to Nintendo they don't actually see that there's an issue. But I think me and others in the gaming community, if you want to call it that, feel a little let down, and maybe they don't understand what it is exactly that we do want out of a Mario Party game. So, with all of that said, I'm going to take Super Mario Party and compare it to Mario Parties 1, 2, and 4 mathematically to see if maybe we can figure out what's going on. Just a little bit. Just maybe figure out what's going on. As has been said, Mario Party sales have held steady-ish at about 2 to 3 million copies per game. The reception and general feeling from the gaming community, however, seems to be growing ever negative. But why? Why is the question that I wanted to answer, but with a video game, how do you answer a question of such subjectivity? Well, you look at all the objective factors available to you. So, that's what I did. I happen to own Mario Parties 1, 2, 4, and now Super Mario Party. I decided to run and record one game on each board for each game to compare the game lengths as well as star and coin collection and use. This was not difficult for the N64 and GameCube, as all I did was run the game from the console to the PVR, then to an RF modulator, then finally into my CRT television. Super Mario Party was a little more difficult, because I had to actually play the game, as you cannot set or change characters mid-game. I'll explain later. First, let's define what is a Mario Party game, and what are its components, and how do they play together. A Mario Party game is a symbiotic relationship between two different types of gameplay, board play and mini gameplay. Board play is the core structure of a Mario Party game, the trunk and branches if you will. This is what you are trying to win. The board play consists of rolling dice and selecting paths to accumulate coins, items, and most importantly, stars. However, the most important way to bring in coins and add value to your board play economy is through minigames. The minigames are the leaves and fruit on the Mario Party tree. They give sustenance to the board play by granting coins to winners. In this way, Mario Party is both a board game and a video game. Because it is a blend of both types of play, they must be in balance for the game to feel engaging. Side note, this is the main reason that Mario Party The Top 100 was not a critical success. They shipped a tree with no trunk or branches, just a pile of leaves and some fruit. I would only really pick a couple minigames that I actually enjoy on their own, but even then they don't have the tension required during gameplay because there is nothing at stake. But this video isn't about Mario Party The Top 100. Let's do a mathematical breakdown of the games before I jump into the criticisms. Game length. Each of the games were run on a 20-turn game mode, and then the computer players were switched in so that it would play itself for the whole game. I figured this would be the best way to get good consistency with turn length since it was all AI controlled. Super Mario Party forces you to select the number of players at the opening of the game before you've even started to decide what you want to do. This means that the days of your friend Jimmy being able to jump on out and set his player to a computer because his mom is here to pick him up are long gone. The average and median game lengths can be seen here on the screen. Notice the game length does get longer over time. Now, an hour and a half doesn't seem like that much more than an hour and 15 minutes like in Mario Party 4, but I will expand on that. The total coins held by all players at the end of the game just seems to be a scatter with no real pattern to it. Granted, I should run this probably 1,000 times before I say that, but I don't have that kind of time. The total stars, however, have a very large leap. Previously, it was averaged about 10 stars per 20-turn game, but in Super Mario Party, that doubles. The gameplay is stunted to give you more stars in fewer turns. The board length did increase right off the bat from Mario Party 1 to 2 by a factor of around 150%, but then dipped for Mario Party 4. From there, we can see that Super Mario Party has the lowest average board length with 30 spaces for the shortest, Kamek's Tantalizing Tower, and 58 spaces for the longest, Whomp's Domino Ruins. It is also worth noting that Super Mario Party only has 4 boards. With the games mathematically broken down, let's go into what I thought was good about the game, then we'll go into what had potential, and then we'll go into the bad. The mini-games are generally fantastic. Of course, you have the ones that are lackluster, but in general, even the ones that utilize the Joy-Con's gyro and motion were engaging and fun. The little high fives after each team-based minigame that gives you a couple coins is a nice touch, and I honestly can't believe that Nintendo didn't add that in sooner. It's an accurate representation of my living room circa early 2000s. The smooth transition from board play to gameplay is pretty nice. It feels seamless and has this really fun music that sounds like a 1960s educational film.
Here's the secret. Only Hoover has this combined brush and beta bar.
Having the practice mode appear automatically was a great touch and a nice way to take advantage of how powerful a modern console is. It allows everyone to get really familiar with the mechanics of the game before it counts. The music and general presentation of the game is great. Kind of. Hardly any of it is memorable, but none of it is obnoxious. Nintendo has always decided that anti-aliasing was unnecessary, but it's being played on a console that might as well be confused with a normal tablet, so that doesn't bother me as much. Now, where great presentation is often necessary to a good game, it can't be the only factor to consider. The dice mechanic had a lot of potential. A major win here was making it so that the A button mashers didn't forget to use their items by having items be the default option when one is about to take their turn. A major fail is that the main dice block only goes up to 6. This really limits the gameplay and gives a feeling of slowness at the start of the game. This is, however, counteracted by the opposite problem later on, but 2 wrongs don't make a right. Throughout the game, you may end up with access to different dice. This, theoretically, allows you to select dice that will give you a better chance at a desired result. On its own, this idea is alright, but it gets nearly invalidated by the ally system, which is directly linked to it. If you land on an ally space, it allows you to pick up extra characters to follow you around the board while you play the game. When you pick up a character, you also acquire their dice block. They can also assist in minigames by making your team larger. This is horrible from a minigame perspective. Minigames are supposed to be an even playing field between the players. Be it everybody versus everybody, 1 versus 3, or 2v2, the idea is to give either side an equal chance of winning regardless of board position. This throws that concept completely out of balance. If you happen to acquire allies, which is mostly by luck, you are given a completely unnecessary advantage in future minigames. They almost made bumper balls fun, fair, and winnable. But then they go and ruin it like this. The allies also ruin the dice mechanic because you'd think, oh, I get that dice block and now I can plan accordingly based on that dice block. Well, think again, because now any ally that you added automatically rolls a smaller dice that will add 1 or 2 spaces to your roll. This randomizes and further increases the amount of mental calculus that you have to do while playing Mario Party, and I already passed Calc 1 and 2 in college with a B, so I don't really want to take any more two-dimensional derivatives and integrals. Earlier I mentioned that the problem of slow initial movement is countered by the opposite issue. With more allies comes more movement. This will give anybody with any allies far too much of an advantage, since a substantial portion of the gameplay is the race to the star, which is generally only won by being able to cover distance. The original single 1 through 10 dice block that could be occasionally altered by an item use in Mario Party 2 or RNG in Mario Party 1 was much better in terms of fairness. Now that we've covered the good and the potential, let's talk about the bad of Super Mario Party. Time wasters. All the animations in this game are way too long. Every time a star is acquired, you have to watch Toadette float across the board, which is now the only positive reason that they're super short. Everything has a transition, and you must watch all of it. The board play is heavily de-streamlined. Discovery is a moot point because you get every single thing explained. No matter how many times you've played a board, the first time of any game that you press the map button, Toad will explain the board paths to you. This should never occur. There is a saying in film production, show, don't tell. The idea is to play to the strength of a film, which is its visual element, instead of bogging down the audience with narration. The same could apply to video games. Explore, don't tell. Or something like that. It is completely unnecessary to show an animation every time a star is acquired or someone changes places. That is what the place counters are for, that usually reside in the corners of the screen, but for this game, they don't. More on that later. Suffice for now to say, previously they would just have the places change on screen instead of showing a full breakdown animation. Hidden blocks are supposed to be a surprise. Now, I'm no fan of RNG-driven gameplay, especially when you have to sit there grinding for hours to acquire an arbitrary item that they couldn't just put some engaging gameplay around acquiring, instead of adding time to the hours required to complete. But hidden blocks are typically small and out of the way. However, this spinner tells you the RNG beforehand whether that box is going to contain a star or not. Isn't that the point? To be surprised? It really doesn't fit in for any reason. I'm not even sure what the thought process could have been. Imagine opening your presents Christmas morning, but your parents told you what was going to be inside right before you opened the gift. That's pretty much what this is. We established earlier that Super Mario Party has short boards. The length isn't the inherent issue, as Mario Party 1 has some shorter boards as well, but the difference is the gameplay complexity. Let's look at the two shortest boards in Mario Party 1. Mario's Rainbow Castle is a cutthroat dash to the end of the map where you are either greeted by Toad or Bowser, who reside on opposite ends of a rotating tower. Only upon arriving at the right time will you be presented with a star that is granted by Toad or a coin penalty that is graciously bestowed onto you by Bowser. Also, the map seems longer because there aren't a lot of directional choices to make. The Eternal Star is complex, probably to a fault. There are warp machines that take you to different locations around the board, and their patterns can be altered with no way to know which direction you need to go, thus requiring a lot of trial and error, but making the map feel larger. Now let's take a look at Super Mario Party's longest board and then the shortest one. Whomp's Domino Ruins is almost a direct copy of DK's Jungle Adventure from Mario Party 1, but just with less engaging gameplay. All danger has been stripped out since Super Mario Party doesn't have a Bowser location on any of the maps. The only real way to get penalized is by landing on the rare Bad Luck spaces, which replace the Bowser spaces. I'll expand on that later. Kamek's Tantalizing Tower is a very short loop with a guaranteed chance at a star upon completing it. The only variable mechanic is that you can change the cost of a star and buy multiple stars if you have enough coins. Still feels very simple, and it is definitely not a full 30 spaces to get to the star location, so it doesn't feel like any sort of mad dash, like in Mario's Rainbow Castle, which was at least 35 spaces from front to back if you took the shortest route. The items are dull and uninspired. I started to feel this way with Mario Party 4, as many of the items were used to manipulate the dice blocks, but that was at least by adding a second roll. In Super Mario Party, you can only add a 3 or a 5 to a roll, or reduce a roll by 2. You have the Golden Pipe, which is just the Genie Land, a Coinado, which is kind of like a Boo Bell. The only real original thing is the Ally Phone, which is only due to the Ally system. Mario Party 4, on the other hand, had hammers, chain chomp stickers, and more. The item selection just feels weak. No real consequences. This can be easily seen between Mario Party 1 and 2, but is even more present in Super Mario Party, and is a personal gripe. In Mario Party 1, 1v3 and 2v2 games were paid out by the losing party giving coins to the winning party. Granted, it is not consistent with the idea that the mini-games are to stimulate the coin economy, but it makes the tension higher and puts much more at stake while playing the mini-games. There are just generally more ways to lose coins in older Mario Party games. In Mario Party 2, in Space World, the Bowser laser takes all of your coins, should you be unfortunate enough to be zapped. The only similar mechanic in Super Mario Party is King Bob-omb's Powder Cake Mine, but you only lose half of your coins. Now, I'm not saying that I love losing coins, but having the risk present is part of what makes the game exhilarating and engaging. No need to keep track of where my opponents are. It is almost certain in Super Mario Party that the star will be reached by at least one player every turn. Thus, there is almost no strategy to movement. The best strategy is to acquire as many allies as you can, if you can influence it, to increase your movement and guarantee your access to a star on your turn. The idea of racing to a star location is just not present in Super Mario Party. Screen corners, or lack thereof. Personally, I loved having the characters in all their own corners of the screen. It was clearly based on the old model of split-screen multiplayer, which still exists during some of the minigames, but is just a dying format of gameplay in general. It made you feel throughout the whole game that that corner belonged to you, and even if you were broke, you still had that. Super Mario Party opted to place the characters at the top of the screen in a row, which does still display the relevant information, but just doesn't feel right to me. It is almost as if they are saying that information is a separable component of the experience and should be considered an annoyance instead of an integral piece of the UI. As mentioned earlier, the star moves around the map far too much because it is acquired far too much. This is likely because they knew a game with half as many turns would take just as long, so they doubled the rate of star acquisition. This did work for making the amount of stars acquired in a predicted hour of gameplay the same as in previous games, but severely altered the board play. As stated above, the star rarely goes more than one turn without changing places, and often changes multiple times in a single turn or even a single roll. Coins don't seem to have consistent worth in this game to previous games. You only start with 5, and the stars only cost 10, items are cheap, and you don't acquire as many coins in minigames. It is honestly a lesser issue because what there is to spend coins on is already super toned down and not extravagant. It just doesn't feel right or balanced, but is behind so many layers of imbalance that it's truly hard to criticize at this point. The Mario Party mode in Super Mario Party just feels all around lackluster, and here's why. They put a lot of their development time into other game modes. I'm not going to cover them because I don't think they represent the core of Mario Party. There were alternative game modes in previous Mario Parties, but they were typically for single player. Super Mario Party fractures the core and seems to have tried to deliver a few smaller games instead of focusing on tuning and perfecting the central gameplay. Another small gripe is that there is no central bad guy. Turning Bowser into a playable character removes a critical component of the board play, as he was met with no comparable replacement. Having a bad luck spaces is fine, but there is no chance for major catastrophe, just minor hindrances. In conclusion, the Mario Party formula is not dead. There is still potential, but it has to be packaged and presented with balance and streamlining in mind. Reducing the standard play to 10 turns and maxing out at 20, which was the standard before, really makes it feel like the difference between Monopoly and Monopoly Jr. There is a market for this kind of game, Nintendo just needs to hit it. Mario Kart has made it an expectation to see maps from previous games included. I think Mario Party needs a nostalgia cash-in as well. They kind of tried that with just the minigames, but you need all components and they all need to be balanced. In the early games, the balance was almost perfect, which means with experimentation that balance would be thrown off. Regardless, I will still continue to go back and play the old Mario Party games with my siblings and friends because that's what we grew up on. And that magic has yet to be reproduced.